It's so rainy today. It's Friday. I didn't realize it was gonna rain. And in the middle of the night when I let my dogs out, it wasn't raining. But then when I let them back in, about an hour and a half later, it was pouring. And it has not stopped since. So the house is dark. There's a lot of blackbirds outside. It's fascinating. But you can only look at them through the windows because as soon as you open the door, they just take off, which is really cool too, because you see this huge flock of birds just flying at the same time. I'm making breakfast. I'm toasting some sourdough bagels that I made yesterday. I've got everything bagels and cinnamon crunch. It's like the Panera copycat. So I mix cinnamon with brown sugar and coat the bagels with that before baking. I also made the Panera copycat walnut honey cream cheese spread, and I'm using my yogurt cheese for the everything bagels. I'm making some onions and ham with scrambled eggs for breakfast and having a little Earl Grey. And we're gonna eat, read, and actually go do errands in this weather. I have dinner guests tonight, so I wanted to get a few things from the store that I don't have. They have little children, and you know how it's hard to make like a ramen soup is what I was picturing making, but I don't think little children want that. So I'd rather make something a little simpler, just like the three basic components of like rice, a meat, a vegetable, and I made chocolate pudding yesterday, which there's plenty of to share tonight, along with some curry mustard sauce, which is so delicious. So it'll be yellow rice with chicken thighs cooked with broccoli, and I'll cook it long enough to where it gets really tender and kind of like crispy looking, and we'll serve that over the yellow rice with broccoli and then the sauce. It's delicious. I also just took the time to sit and plan out all of my greenhouse plans. I got this shelf. I'll share the link in the description box from Amazon. It was $45. Not a bad price if you ask me for a little shelf greenhouse thing that can just sit in the back porch. I'm gonna start several seeds. I'll share which ones a little later. And I also planned out my garden so that I don't plant, because I always overplant, and then I end up needing to give away a bunch of tomato plants that I didn't need to plant or sell them. I have thousands of marigold seeds from the marigolds that I planted last year. I don't know what I'm going to do with those. I will give many away. I might start a few and sell them as little starter plants. I also might scatter some through the trails and see what happens. I mean, why not, right? I had some beautiful rainbow chard that I thought would go nicely with this breakfast, so I added some in with the ham and onions, and I'm happy to say our egg production is going up significantly. It has been so wonderful to have lots of eggs to work with again in our kitchen. These sourdough bagels are so delicious. I usually make the dough the night before, let it ferment overnight, and then make them in the morning. They make about 16 bagels because I do a double batch of the recipe. I'll provide the link in the description box below. You've got to try them. They're so yummy. I usually do 3 kinds, the 2 I made today, as well as Parmesan, and they're definitely a family favorite. So in the greenhouse right away, starting today, I plan on planting 4 pea plants, 2 cabbage plants or 2 cabbage heads, some kale, 3 tomato plants of 3 different varieties actually. I have a Cherokee purple, I have a orange, Chef's Choice orange, and I have beefsteak. I'm gonna say 4 green pepper plants and maybe 2 jalapeno plants, several lettuces. All of that will go directly in the greenhouse. Directly in the ground, I'm gonna do cilantro, beets, carrots, radishes, and then I'm gonna start some dill, peppermint, lemon balm in the greenhouse. Basil, of course. Raspberries and strawberries, I need to see what's up at the store with that. I want to do elderberry canes again because the ones I planted last year worked, but they got run over. They got mowed over, so I need to do it again. This is the time of year to do that, January, February. I will make sure the whole family knows where they are so they don't get mowed over again, but I won't do that today because it's so rainy. Sunflowers, I'll also put in the greenhouse today. I plan on planting the raspberries near the blackberries and the strawberries on some window baskets along the porch. I tried that last year, didn't work. I need to do a little more research on which plants to, well, honestly, I need to start them in the greenhouse is what I need to do. And then after I transplant all these things, I will start new things in the greenhouse. Cucumbers, corn, squash, beans, watermelon, sweet potatoes, and anything else I come up with. Something I really want to do this year, kind of to bring to life what we studied about Native Americans, is do the Three Sisters farming. So I plan on doing 2 corn plants with beans and squash and do the Three Sisters farming just to see it firsthand, and I think it'd be really cool. So we'll do that later. After we transplant everything that I'm starting today in the greenhouse in about 6 to 8 weeks, we will start all those new seeds, and that is my plan. I'm trying to plan like I usually don't do because I do want my garden to be a little more orderly this year. And last year I went overboard with sunflowers. They kind of like took over my whole garden. So even though I did have a good pepper harvest, a good jalapeno harvest, a fair tomato harvest, great potatoes, watermelons. I think I started too late, so they didn't ripen in time. It was still, for the amount of space I have, not enough food. And the chickens destroyed my greens in the spring because that's when we got our rooster and he showed them where the garden was. So in the fall I did more greens, but spring is the best time for greens. They're just better in the spring. So I'm getting new compost this year. I'm getting wood chips this year. I started the greenhouse this year. I'm gonna do the greenhouse this year, which I'm really excited for. And I'm planning so I don't over plant. And I think I have a good plan. I'm also gonna put some cattle panel hoops in between 1 or 2 of the beds so that I can let the green beans later in the year climb up that, as well as the cucumber. But for this first little wave, spring garden, I will do the sugar snap peas, climbing on those. And I think it'll be more dependable. I feel like once the green beans get massive, the trellises start to tip over, they get so weighed down. So this will be significantly more strong. And thankfully I have a bunch of cattle panel that somebody gave Hector last year. So it's going to be awesome. I had just a little arugula sprouts left, enough to top my eggs with. This was a delicious breakfast that we all enjoyed. We did have a busy day after this, so I didn't film anything the rest of the day, but I did film plenty the next day. They're all in our woods. I'm pretty sure these flocks of blackbirds are common grackles, but I don't know for sure. Look at, I don't know if you can tell, every treetop is covered with them. This happens every year. It's fascinating. And if we run through that field, when they all take off flying, you could hear the whoosh of all their wings in unison. It's pretty cool. They just keep on coming. I don't know if you could hear that in the video, but I just heard the big whoosh. I hope you did. I've been watching Farmhouse on Boone for a year or so now, and I love her food. I love trying recipes I see on her channel, and I've only recently started to watch her sister's channel, which I think is called something like This Oily House or My Oily House, something like that. Well, she gave this very simple crepe recipe just on her video. She just said, I do 12 eggs, 1 cup of milk, 1 cup of sourdough starter. So I was like, I'm making that today. And I whipped together some cream cheese and frozen strawberries and topped it with syrup. And I know it looks hilarious, but oh my word, it was so yummy. It's like a burrito. It's like a sweet burrito. And this is the queso. That is too funny. Okay, I was making fun of them because they do look funny, but I love them. They're delicious. I was like, okay, we're doing less eggs next time. This looks like an omelet. It looks wrong. It looks weird. Delicious. I love them. Okay, so I've got tons of dishes to do, and then we're gonna play Monopoly, but I wanted to show you, this is what I'm talking about with my sourdough schedule being thrown off. I mixed this dough for 2 regular sourdough loaves yesterday around 5. No, that's not true. It was nighttime, like 10 p.m. And it is still not even slightly risen, and it's been all night. So this afternoon, it'll be ready to bake. Usually first thing in the morning, it's ready to bake. And then I mixed this at the same time for English muffins, and I couldn't make them for breakfast because they take much longer to rise right now because of the temperatures. It's not even cold in my house, but it's definitely chillier than usual. So this is new-ish. I don't know, I'm assuming it's the temperatures, but I also wonder if it's the amount of starter I have going in my container here. Now it's much smaller because I used it for both of those plus the crepes this morning. But before it was like this high. So I wonder if using starter from a container with a lot of starter has anything to do with it. Probably not, but it's one thought that's crossed my mind because I don't usually have that much starter going, but I don't know. It's probably not that. Either way, it's not a big deal. It's just a little bit more, a few extra steps ahead of what I'm usually thinking in terms of making dough, letting it rise, and by the time I get to cook it, to eat it. So it'll be tonight before that's ready, and that's fine. I'm going to clean all these dishes, and then we're going to play Monopoly because it's a rainy Saturday. There's nothing to do except enjoy each other. So we had yummy crepes. We're going to play a game, and then there's a little laundry going. And I really want to start some seeds. I'll show you guys what we accomplished. Also, I started to soak those black beans. I think I would like to make some chili and cornbread for dinner. And I'll probably make a huge quantity so that we can serve the leftovers for church tomorrow. We have church here tomorrow, so I also probably later on need to vacuum and make sure the bathroom is tidy. And that's pretty much all I do for church, because if I had to make everything perfect every time, it would take away from the joy. So I usually just tidy, clean the bathrooms, always vacuum because there's little kids that sit on the floor the whole time. Make communion bread if I have to. Tomorrow I have to because the young lady that always makes it is out of town. And make sure I have grape juice and a potluck meal and the songs. We do the music, so we gotta practice today. But we do that every week, even if it's not here. And that's pretty much it. Try to keep it simple and very enjoyable and pleasant, not stressful at all. Well, as I'm standing here scrubbing these cast irons, now I'm thinking about other options for dinner. I don't want chili. I could pull out these beef bones I have, roast them, make them into bone broth in the Instapot, and then they are covered in meat. They're supposed to be soup bones, but they're covered in meat, enough for a meal. And I could take all the meat off, give the bones to the dogs, and use the broth and the meat to make ramen for dinner, which I love. It's just that I have this gorgeous baby bok choy that goes so beautifully in the ramen. And I wanted to make it last night for dinner, but our guests have 2 little children, and I was like, this is probably not the most kid-friendly dish. So I had to swap that idea out. And now that it's just us tonight, ramen just sounds so glorious. So we'll see. I also thought about a coconut milk based Thai green or red curry. Maybe soup, maybe just meat with sauce over rice. There's just so many good ideas. I'm just gonna have to, I think I'm just gonna make the meat for sure and then just decide which dish I'll use it for later. I'll have broth, I'll have tender, delicious meat, and I'll decide the actual final decision later. And maybe I'll make chili for church tomorrow with cornbread, but I'll do it in the morning and in a smaller quantity.
Right. So when you make chicken bone broth, you don't really have to prep anything. You can just put them all in your Instapot or your crock pot, fill it with water, a little apple cider vinegar, and let it cook. For beef or pig bones, you need to roast them. It brings out the flavor. It makes it so much more delicious. So I always roast them for 20 to 25 minutes at 400 degrees and then put them in the Instapot or crock pot for however long you need to, depending on what gadget you're using.
Yellow.
I have officially been bought out and gone bankrupt by Ivan. He always. So I had my heart set on starting my seeds yesterday, but we were so busy I didn't get to, and I didn't want to rush through it. I wanted it to be a nice leisurely activity. So today I have plenty of time for it. And this little seed starting kit is kind of like a miniature greenhouse. So even though we also did not have time to build my greenhouse shelf thing, we can do that in the next few days. There's no rush because this will act like a little miniature greenhouse until the plants are too big to fit under the plastic covering. So I don't plan on waiting that long. I probably will build it tomorrow and move all of this out to the patio in the greenhouse. And then I need some more starting kits to plant some more things that didn't fit in this one. So I went ahead and decided on ramen for tonight. First thing I'm going to do is boil some eggs. If you want perfect boiled eggs, once the water starts to boil, cover the pot, move it off the heat, and just let it sit there. So I'm doing onions, garlic, ginger, celery, carrots, and baby bok choy for my veggies, and a variety of noodles. Here's the finished beef bone broth and all the beautiful tender meat. I'm going to put all that meat back into that beef bone broth, add all the veggies, add some soy sauce, rice vinegar, fish sauce, sriracha, and let it cook on the soup setting for about 20 minutes. And once it's done, you just serve the broth with all the veggies and meat into bowls. I lined my bowls with sesame seed oil and sesame seeds. Then I put the noodles in, and then I top that with the boiled eggs and the nori, along with some extra sriracha sauce.
So I'm a little sad we don't have green onion. That's probably one of my top favorite toppings for ramen, but it's okay. We have our boiled eggs and our nori. I love switching up the recipe. The link I'll provide for you in the description below is so yummy. I've made it with chicken, I've made it with spare ribs, I've made it with roast, I'm making it with beef bones tonight. Any noodle will be wonderful. I think something I never knew before was that you need to boil the noodles separate and then you build your bowls. So you serve your broth and meat and veggies in the bowl, then you add your noodles that were boiled in a separate pot so that all the starchiness is in that water and you're not cooking it. The broth remains really, really brothy and not starchy from the noodles boiling with the soup or in the ramen. And then you top it with whatever you like. I always do nori, green onions, boiled eggs, and we've also had cilantro and a little drizzle of sesame oil. So it just depends what you have on hand. That's the beauty of this soup. I feel like the absolute essentials are soy sauce, rice vinegar. I love sriracha in it. Good bone broth as the base. If you don't have bone broth, you can do, chicken stock or something. But man, the bone broth just elevates the flavors. And noodles that you really, really like. And then you can do anything. So I hope you try it and tell me what you think. I was hoping I could bake all of the sourdough tonight, but it's not quite as risen as it should be. So I'm going to divide this dough into 2 loaves, put them in Banneton baskets and into the fridge. That way they'll continue to rise, but a little slower. And this whole bowl of English muffin dough will go directly into the fridge, and I'll make them fresh for breakfast in the morning. Thank you all for joining me today. God bless you, and see you next time.